Yup, I'm streaming. I'm streaming. And, okay, so, well, the purpose of live streaming is to just meander a bit, get some work done, and kind of sort of publicly. So here we are. The work today is a bit on the, oh gosh, what's the word? It's a little mundane. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I'm actually doing my video editing in Blender. So I had to reproduce the first bit of the show using Blender. And a couple of things I think are of note. This shot here needed a camera push in, and this shot here also needed a camera push in, and plus they both needed some color correction. So, you know, that sort of puts me in a spot where it's like, okay, do I want to go back and add some, you know, through the schematic view, just add some post-production effects in order to dial in the look and which you can do by just, you know, doing this, adding some effects in the schematic. And when you go into preview mode, wango bango, you see the effects of those effects. But really, honestly, it was a lot faster and easier to just do it here. So what I did was in Blender, I just grabbed each of these clips, and then in the modifier stack, I just added a curves modifier. So if you turn that modifier off and on, you can see the color correction change that occurred. And I also animated, just set animation keyframes for the image crop, and you can see that here in this curve. So what that does is it just causes the image to be cropped a bit over time. And I did that with both of those shots, and then also added color correction. Actually, frankly, almost every single shot has a color corrector added to it, and that's pretty typical with filmmaking in general. That's why it doesn't pay to kill yourself trying to get the color exactly dialed in really early in the process, because it just always winds up changing anyway once you see all the shots you know, together. So the workflow is pretty slick. In this shot, I really just noticed that actually I just noticed another thing that needs to be fixed. So I noticed that the window here, actually if you go back to a previous shot, I believe it's probably this one, yeah, you can see the lip there on the window, and when we cut to this shot, that lip isn't there. You know, that sort of catches the specular. It's really not a specular highlight, but it's like the edge light from the moon glow coming in. So for my workflow, what I did was I just went ahead and painted in that edge directly here in OpenToonz, and then I just hit Alt-R, which is going to render the whole shot out. It uses fast render with FFmpeg and generates an MP4. Now the MP4 is at like the highest quality level, so it is it's a broadcast quality MP4. And actually, I'm going to cancel this because I see one more thing right here that I want to fix. So let's just stop that. Alright, so all I need to do is hit the R key to sample that color. Okay, just got a glitch. Oh yeah, and the reason is because I'm down here. I'm downstream on the image. Once I started painting, OpenToonz created a new keyframe for me, so I asked it to, but I didn't mean to because I wasn't paying attention. So anyway, B key, and I'm just gonna paint over this, and now I see that, guess what? Surprise, surprise, that flaw is not actually in the wall layer or level, whatever one you want to call it. So I'm going to jump over to my XSheet view, and I'm going to have to blitz through these kind of quick. I'm suspecting maybe it's in the light beams. Yep, there it is. Okay, here in the light beams, I need to erase that. That's just a boneheaded mistake on my part. These light beams, you can hardly see them. Frankly, what I really should do here, gosh, it's really tempting to just redo the light beams. Right now, what I did was this is a raster level, so you can't really change the color or anything in post, but what I can do is, okay, so let me explain what I'm trying to say here. I actually have a plug-in on this level, and OpenTunes is acting a little stupid here about my outputs, and I don't want to wrestle here on YouTube with fixing that, so no big deal. What we have is here with the beams, we've got a blur and a level adjustment. Okay, I'm just going to take those out. Okay, so now if I do a preview, you can see the light beams kind of look stupid because they look too much like just painted beams. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and redo this with the airbrush. So let's go back to this other room so I got a little bit more room to work. And make sure that we're on the beams level. Here we go. Right there. Okay, and do I actually have an airbrush here ready to go? It doesn't look like that's one. I know that's not. That might be. Nope. I just can't remember from these. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a new palette entry that is most specifically going to be my favorite airbrush. And then I'm going to change the color to kind of a light color. Alright, so now what I want to do is zoom out a bit, and let's pull out the eraser, and let's get rid of this. So this is what the work is today. This is what I'm doing. I'm going through these old scenes and seeing things that just really, hey Darren T, how you doing, man? I think you're younger than me. Young man, that's great. But that's probably good for my ego. So okay, so hit the B key. And probably what we want to do is put this kind of on the big side, because I just want to kind of, so what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and painting this to look exactly like I want it to look, so that it looks that way all the time, not just when I preview. So I'm definitely moving away from using post-production effects and towards using more just painting, you know. So that's not too horrible. The beams are a little bit large, and I don't think this is the problem with raster levels as opposed to Toons raster levels, is that you can't. I don't think it does me much good to turn down the alpha here. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure if I turn the alpha down, yeah, it doesn't. I guess it helps a little. Let me go ahead and redo this. Alt key to make my eraser as big as I can make it. I'm gonna see if turning down the opacity of the color actually had an effect. I don't actually think it did. I don't think so. So I got to go really fast. Okay, that's not horrible. I think that last stroke could be maybe a little better. So, but so the bottom line is it's more fun to do these effects by painting them in, and then I know everything's going to look exactly the way I want it to. Okay, so we've got that rim light in there. We've redone the beams, and we've also gotten rid of that little erroneous thingy-dingy that was there. So I look younger. Well, dude, you know what? That's because you got to give credit to my guns. It's because I've been pumping iron every day since New Year's Day 1983. So that, plus I take good quality vitamins and eat mostly vegetarian and yada 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 yada. And I've been doing it long enough that, you know, it's sort of, I'm getting the payoff now. Okay, well thanks Bruce. You the earlier scenes, how your point of view has changed. I've seen, yeah, well that's for sure. I mean, Darren, you're one of the few people who would probably be aware to pick up on that. Because there were lots of things that I said early in the process that I thought was the right way to do things, and I've just simply changed my mind on a lot of things. And I think that's the beauty of having an ambitious project that requires you to go deep with the software, and also the complexity grows. You have various stages that feed into each other downstream. When you get that level of complexity, you gain a certain pragmatism about what you thought was the right way to do things oftentimes turns out not to be. And let me see, there might be one little thing here. Yes, there's one little thing with Ninja 2's hand that needs to be extended to there. So you'll see I'm using the timeline. Frankly, I don't like the timeline very much. I'm only using it here because it, you know, it's kind of a choice between a big drawing area or the X sheet, unfortunately. Now, okay, so this looks like it's ready to render. And so then what I do is I just hit Alt-R, which is set up to do what's called a fast render. And I said earlier, the quality of that MP4 is going to be very high. It's completely suitable for editing with. But there is a problem. And the problem is that editing with MP4s isn't always the most performant. A lot of times it's not too bad, but it could be better. And so I have a technique. I'm gonna show you here real quick. So I've got OpenToon set up so that whenever I just hit Alt-R and it does a quick render of the current scene, it always puts it in the same folder, which is L Anime Render. So now I got all these rendered shots that are in this folder, and then I have this batch file, and this batch file with a really ugly command line. What that batch file does, you'll notice that there's a copy of ffmpeg.exe right here in this folder. Okay, so what this does is when I click this batch file is going to look at all the files in the folder and say, hey, are any of the files here MP4s? Oh, they are? Well, convert that MP4 to a maximum high quality MJPEG AVI file. Doesn't matter how many MP4s there are, it'll convert them, and when they're done converting, it will delete the MP4s. Okay, so now this is the cool thing about it. Using FFmpeg on the command line to do these conversions. Because who wants to spend time converting files? Well, this file's already there because I'm overwriting it, right? So I'm going to hit yes. Watch this. Boom, done. It's that fast. Okay, so now theoretically this should update in Blender, and normally what it does is it sort of blinks around a lot, and it doesn't seem to want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just reopen the project, and now you can see those changes propagated. We have the new beams, and we have the edge there that I painted in. Okay. So why use MJPEG in Blender? Well, because it's real performant. When I hit the Alt-A key, I get a full 24 frames per second pretty consistently. If you add effects like a crossfade or most of these shots, frankly, have color correction on them. Like you can see here that there's a color curve here. I'm still getting 24 frames a second. So it turns out that high quality MJPEGs are just a super good. Yeah, I am a programmer. Right. Well, that's the value of the timeline. It's just, I guess, you know, I used to do nothing but timelines when I edited in Vegas and stuff, which of course I still do, but, you know, I think I've gotten used to the X sheet. I've just gotten used to it. And there are a couple capabilities. This is actually a little bit of a flaw in OpenToon's. I can't tell you specifically, but there are capabilities in the X sheet, and it's not a complete parody of functionality. There's a couple things you can do in the X sheet that you can't yet do in the timeline. I can't even remember what they are now, but okay, so having done that, it's now we got to move on down the road to the next scene and just kind of see what we've got. So file, I guess we should probably save all just to be safe, and let's kind of see what's next. What I've been doing is taking each of these shots and breaking them down into individual OpenToon scenes for, you know, adding lip sync, adding effects, you know, everything. It's just a little less cumbersome. And since everything flows really nicely in Blender, once I've got a shot done, I just bring it into Blender, and then if I want to tweak the editing there, I can. It's no big deal. So there the ninjas are climbing in. Akari hears a noise. So I think ninjas enter. No, that's... Well, I should probably clarify. I used to have all these shots in single tunes files, and since I've broken them up, I get a little confused on what I've got where. So I have to refresh myself. Pre-fight dialogue. See, that's not it, because the ninjas come in and they have the little situation with the vase. So I'm going to have to open this larger file that the other ones were taken out of and see if I'm missing something here. So let's go to the X sheet. Well, no, this is just her sleeping, isn't it? So that's not helpful. Sorry to make you sit through this, Darren. The battle of the back half. Maybe this was it. Let's check it out. Okay. The guys have come in. Yeah, this is, yeah, that's after they had the whole little thing with the vase. So this has 425 frames. Let's check it out. Like I said, sorry to make you sit through this. Yes, here we go. Okay, so we've got that. We've got that. We've got that we just fixed up. And it's a little different here than it was there, because once, this is something that you probably want to know. I've wondered about this. If I take an X sheet and I drag it into OpenTunes, and or I take a scene file, drag it into OpenTunes, it will get inserted into OpenTunes as a sub X sheet. Okay. So the question I had is, well, if I do that, is it a link? In other words, if I change something, if I go into this sub X sheet and change something, does that change propagate to the original scene that I dragged into OpenTunes? In other words, is it just maintaining a reference and all the data is getting updated over there? Well, it turns out no. If you drag a scene into OpenTunes, it makes a copy of it. And so there is no having the changes propagate from. So if I wanted to effectively edit in OpenTunes by dragging these scenes back into a larger scene file, any changes I make at that point, I would have to go duplicate those changes in the original X sheet or the original scene if I wanted to, have them match up. So that's one of those workflow things that you bump into that you don't bump into with a simple project. But once it gets complicated, you have to stop and think about it. Okay, do I want to keep the master information in a large sub X sheet with lots of individual, or large X sheet with lots of sub X sheets? Or do I want to break it all into individual scenes and fine tune it there? But then you lose a sense of the flow, is the potential problem. So then you say, well, maybe I want to take each of those individual scenes then and drag them back into OpenTunes. So now I've got a bunch of sub X sheets again and sort of add finishing touches there. What I've found is I have a long scene that has a lot of shots at the pencil test and ink and paint stage. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and break them into individual shots, let them each be their own OpenTunes scenes, which are numbered. And then those will get rendered, and the actual editorial decisions get made here in Blender. That's what's working for me. I don't know that it's definitive. What I have found is it's pretty fast. You just saw it. It's pretty fast to jump back to OpenTunes, make a change, quickly re-render, and then just reopen the project in Blender and everything's updated. That seems to be a pretty good sort of, hey, Oxer, pretty good procedural workflow for the most part. Okay, so what's suggested here? Yeah, he comes in here. So this is what we need to do. We need to take this and go ahead and chop this down into individual scenes. That's what I have not yet done. So I've done this one, this one, this one, and did I do this one, or is this the... Okay, that's the one I just cleaned up. So these three columns get deleted. All right? And then the way I've been doing it, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go ahead and delete these three. And I'm going to... What I've found is normally if I explode this sub X sheet, it won't work. But if I go down into it and then back out of it and then explode it, it does work. Weird, but That's the way it goes. So I'm going to go down, come back out, hit explode, sub-X sheet, and there it did work. And in this case, I have to say, because of the way I'm working, it makes more sense to drag these up to the top. So what I'm going to do is just take this. Oh, wait a second. That's a bad idea. Control Z. Z. Okay, why is that a bad idea? Because it looks like we got some keyframes here that we're not going to lose. So that's okay. I'll just set my preview range with my auto markers here. Hey Darren, if you feel ambitious and you want to mention to the developers, because I haven't gotten around to it, there is at this point no way to set start marker and stop marker and assign hotkeys to them, as far as I can tell. It's not available in the file configure shortcuts. So, I mean, I can just double check here. If I hit marker, yeah, I'm not set start. Let's see, maybe the word start. No. See, there's no way to set that. And to me, that's kind of a bummer because I have the L key set to loop and the K key set to rewind. And what I really wish is I could set the I key to in point or start marker and hit the O key, assign that to out point or stop marker, because then my loop, rewind, in and out are all together, and it would make it really fast to choose a preview range and just kind of go from there. So I think I mentioned that to them before and have them stored at the scene. Well, come on, you're kicking it, Oxer. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. Okay, so now I need to save this as, what are we going to call this? Oh, we'll call this Ninja 2 Struggling. Now, this one's going to have the background changed. Okay, and you'll see that here in a second. Okay. So, I'll just call this 0015. I'm slow to remember some of these things because I really haven't gotten much done in the last 2 days. I've sort of been away from it. Ninja 2 flops around outside the window. Okay. So now, as stated, we have a bit of a problem. And the problem is that this background image is completely wrong. If you go to Blender, you can see that that background image has been supplanted by this kind of dramatically better one. Okay, so now what we need to do is go ahead and bring that in and fix it. So how are we going to do that? Well, number one, it looks like this has a keyframe on it, so probably what we'll do is we'll just insert a column here. I need to open my image viewer, and let's see here. I guess this would be, well, this is the problem with age, man, is you remember where everything is, and then like 5 seconds later you come back and don't remember where things are. If I am correct, this is actually here somewhere. You have an exterior. It's not there. So yeah, this is kind of silly and unfortunate, but I have to find the file. That's like the most embarrassing thing to have to do publicly. Search for, I don't know where I kept my file. That's awesome. Hey, there's some anime babes. Nice. So where did I put it? In backgrounds? Yes. There it is. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do here is let's drag this guy into here, but let's just, you know, this is an example of what Darren mentioned. I had favored loading, which means I know where my files are stored, and then I load them in. I'm kind of leaning lately more towards importing so that you actually have different versions of the same background image in each of the OpenTunes files for the simple reason that a lot of times they get painted and changed. In this case, I don't think that's going to happen because I'm pretty set on this image, so I'm going to go ahead and load it. Okay, and then obviously the positioning of it's pretty whacked out. So the first thing let's do is, see, that's another thing I wish you could hotkey, is each of these items. It's usually easiest to just set it to all mode. Okay, so let's do all mode, and let's scale this a little bit and drag it to something like that. That is not too bad, I think. Okay, and having done that, yeah, this column level can be deleted. Okay, so now let's take a little assessment. Okay, this has post-production color correction, which pretty much isn't too bad. So let's just roll this and kind of... so, I mean, that's actually another example of things that have changed. I was using, early in the process, I was using post-production schematic node effects for final color correction. And lately I've completely abandoned that in favor of just Tunes raster levels where I paint, because then I can vignette it. So I'm going to do that right now just so you see what the heck I'm talking about. First thing let's do is let's hit the F3, and you can see a lot of crap in the schematic for the simple reason that I deleted a lot of levels. Okay, so we need to ungroup some things. Okay, that one turns out to be very important, but I'm going to delete that peg. I never animate pegs for the simple reason that you can't see the animation keys in the X sheet. So for me, that's kind of a non-starter. Okay, and that's just a peg, 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 and this group is probably nothing. Yep, peg. Okay, that gets us back under control. Let's boop, organize things a little better. And now let's switch to the FX. Alright. Ungroup. Oh, we just had a... Okay, that's not too bad. This is what I was after, though. Let's get rid of that. No more post-production FX in the old manner. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the B key, boom, and just extend this. So that created a keyframe. And what I typically do is call this tint. And then what we can do, let's go to the Dave room, and again let's grab our airbrush, make it really big, and so now I can kind of do the color correction but also use that color correction to bring our eye to what we really want to be looking at, which is our ninjas, and then we can go ahead and change the color of it here a little bit towards the blue. And you know what I'm going to do is yeah, see you, Darren. Let's see, I gotta read some comments here. 30-second break for comments. I'll do time lapse of the heads. Yeah, I saw some of the live streaming of it. That'd be great to see when you. There you go. Channels are more to push myself to spend a set 2 to 4 hours after work. Yeah, that's, you know what, and I'm doing the same thing today, Oxer. You know, I'm just getting back to really sticking to a schedule. I think it's important. I'm willing to help you. Meaning, huh? That's cool. Sorry, chaps got to pop off for a bit. Okay. Yeah. Well, the tinted layer, the great thing about it, again, is the vignetting. It's the fact that you can really dial in. You can direct the attention of the viewer a little better if you use this technique. So now I wish I could have dual colors, but you can't, and I'll show you why. when you think about color in an OpenToonz level, you have to think of color as being it's a single layer of color. So if I actually add another color here, this is what happens. Because it's effectively erasing the first airbrush and replacing it with the second airbrush. So if I wanted to put some moonbeams in here, I would have to do it on another level. That's kind of an important thing to be aware of. So, you know, for this vignetting type stuff, that's just something that you have to bear in mind. Okay, so now I think I'm pretty close. Let's hit the L key and see if... Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need any more keyframes or anything. Basically, when we cut to this shot, Ninja 1 is standing up and Ninja 2 is flailing around. It's such a wide shot that I don't know that we need... you know, do we need body shadows? I think in this case we can kind of get away with not having body shadows. There is one thing I notice here, though, on one of these shots. Let's go to Ninja 2, which it looks to me like my columns are not well named, which is kind of uncool. I don't know what this is. Oh, this is the shadow under the bed. Okay. Bed, shadow. It's always good to take a little time to name your levels. Okay, I'm just going to call this background 2 because those two shots are kind of working together to create the background. I mean, that's definitely a pretty rough painting. Amar. Oh, hey, cool. Amar. Right. Right on. Okay. I'm gonna try to remember that. Amar like Amar. Amar. Like that? Tell me if that's right. Amar. Or, in other words, not Amar, but it sounds like the emphasis. Well, you're capitalizing the A, so that does that mean it's Amar? Amar. If that's correct. I'm going to try to remember. I always see Oxer, so okay. Amar. I will try to remember that, dude. Alright, what do we got? This level, I was wondering about this. Okay, that's called FX1. And we got 3 drawings. Oh, that's the shadow. Okay, so that's N1. Did N2 shadow disappear? No. So this is N1 shadow. N1 shadow. Very, very important. And this, of course, is the wall. Duh. I'm trying to find... Yes, that's what I'm trying to find right there. So this is N2 shadow, and that is what I was looking for, because this particular drawing right here, yeah, that seems a little problematic to me. So I'm going to go to that drawing, hit the old eraser, and can we brush it on? I need to get rid of this function. Actually, I'm doing it right now. Let's get rid of the function editor. Oh, darn it. Get rid of the function editor, and let's do a... Do we want a palette? Yeah, I guess we kind of do want a palette, so that needs to go here. Okay. And it looks like all we have is the 2. So I also want my brushes. So let's do the... I'm such a bonehead when it comes to these. Style editor. Kind of embarrassing. Alright, let's put the style editor below that. Okay, so now I've customized my room a little bit, so it's kind of slightly more useful for doing what I'm doing right now. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in here, and it looks like there's only the one brush, so I should be able to just paint it on. But it looks like, to me, that's kind of a lame brush to be using, so I'm going to switch to this one and just paint that on there. Okay, that should be better. Let's go ahead and toggle between the between the drawings and just kind of see what we have. Okay, that's actually got too much shadow. That's better. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably okay. This one's a little lame. Okay. So now, the procedure, as described earlier, is to simply hit Alt-R, and now we have a problem. You can see what the problem is. It just rendered this with a quadzillion frames that we don't want. So so this is an important note. Something to remember, AMAR. Just saying that to practice. The quick render appears to either not respect the preview range, or it just is set to start from the beginning of the X sheet or the timeline or the. So actually, fortunately, I can delete this level that had that keyframe in it, and what I need to do is drag these guys north. This kind of sucks because these keyframes are not going to go. Well, actually, they will if I cut and paste. So let's go cut, paste. And it didn't work. Oh, I thought it would. All right. So now I got to grab these. Well, this is yet another example of things that I used to do a certain way and have taken to not doing a certain way. For a while there, I was taking the sub-X sheets and leaving their frames where they fell in the X sheet that they contained it in. You know, and for a while I was putting them all at the top and doing a resequence. It seems like it's better to have them at the top. So that way I can hit a auto marker, and I better save my work again, make sure we don't have anything wacky going on here. Okay, and then hit Alt-R, and see now it's only going to be 27 frames, which is great. That's only going to take less than a minute. And then when I go back here, that MP4 file will appear in here. And there it is. I run the batch file. Boom, it just got converted to a MJPEG AVI. And now we can come and just drag it into Blender. Okay, that's a pretty short shot, I must say. Pretty short. Alright, so 1409 is really where we need to be. Yep, that looks good. And I think because of the way I did it, this shot doesn't really need any color correction in Blender. So, good to go. We'll save our project here just to be safe. And now what I need to do is go back to the previous scene and kind of go through the whole process again, see what the next shot is, look for problems, fix things up, yada, yada, yada. I believe column 5 is where we need to be now. So let's just double check and see. And this is what I was saying, as you can see, those changes didn't propagate. But anyway, that's not altogether surprising. All right, so let's kill that, kill that. Let's go down into the sub-X sheet and back up out of this sub-X sheet. And now let us explode it. Explode. Okay. So now here we got the same problem we had before where there's a lot of keyframes. It's really unfortunate. I don't know if... I'm going to set auto markers and just see what happens here. Maybe if I fool OpenTunes into giving me a correct preview range, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to the end of the range here and hit, yeah. Okay, so now what it's doing is it's caching the correct preview range. Now that I've done that, I wonder if that'll trick OpenTunes into rendering the correct range. So is it going to try to render 252 frames, or is it going to try to render, what would that be, 243 frames? Let's find out. Or I'm sorry, 43 frames. Now, see, it's doing 234. So, word to the wise, if you're going to deal with individual scenes the way I'm doing, be aware that if you try to keep them where they're positioned in the X sheet that the sub X sheets are contained in, ooh, that's hard to say, it's no big deal unless you have keyframes like this. Then it becomes a big deal. Well, tough cookies. Cut, paste, and now we got to go boom and boom, and very carefully drag north, due north, getting on up there. Okay, now we want to say, well, actually, let's double check what exactly is happening here. We don't want to be in preview mode, by the way. Oh, this is where he hits the table. Except we have a problem in this shot. We have a problem because it doesn't look like the final move on the part of Ninja 2 is even there. How that happened, I haven't got a clue. Not a clue. But that's okay. Sometimes you bump into weird things when you are getting close to the end of the process. It's one of those 80-20 rules where the last 20% of the project winds up taking 80% of the time. It is what it is. It never fails, so you can't really cry about it too much. Alright. Now this stuff does have some effects in it, which I probably am going to keep. Now the body lighting, it looks like I'm not actually going through. I'm going to move this to another window. Let me see. Yeah, the body lighting. I wonder why I didn't patch through those. Nor is the raylet patched in. Okay. Well, let me take Ninja 1 and patch him through here and see what happens. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm just, yeah. See, I like that. That backlighting looks pretty good. So I think that, is this the right effect? I think it is. Yep, that's the one. And I'm gonna just ignore those. And the raylet effect, screw it. We don't need that. We can duplicate that quite easily with the airbrushing technique that I mentioned earlier. So, cool beans. So you don't really see those backlights on their bodies until you render, but they do look pretty good, I must say. So another flaw that well, okay, I thought maybe his ponytail was missing, but it looks like we're okay on that. So Ninja number 2 bops around, and he's supposed to knock the vase. So I'm going to save this scene as, gosh golly lollipop, what is it going to be? 13, 14, 15, so we're going to go 16. Ninja 2 hits the table. So it's a little bit, you know, I don't like going back and redoing past work. I don't really like having to revisit stuff. You know, I'm way more into moving forward. So, hey, Jay Parks, let's see what we got here. I don't. That's a good question. Amar. That's a good question. I don't know if setting the output settings changes the quick render. I just don't know. Yeah, I mean the output's TIFF, yada yada yada. Frame start and end. So let's do this. Right now it still says 1 to 234. So let's just do this for fun. Let's hit 1 to 10. Okay. And so now I'm going to double check that that took. All right. So let's go to output settings, and yes, indeed, it still says it says 1 to 10. So now if I hit Alt R for a quick render, does it only do 1 to 10, or is it going to do the preview range? So just to be fair, I'm going to set the auto markers so that it should either say 44 frames or 10. Let's find out. And it says 10. So Aimar is right. If you want to change the quick render frame range, you can do it in the output settings. So that's great. Thank you, sir. Good suggestion. You'll have to do this each time. You ever think about using the star shader effect if the star twinkles? No. I mean, not that I wouldn't, but I would have to say that for this sequence, I don't know that twinkling the stars would add much production value, because it would really only cause a distraction. In the opening scene, I will tell you this, though. Back here, some kind of effect here for the stars to be twinkling would not be a bad idea. And I have no idea. I've never used that effect, so I have no idea how that looks or works or anything. But I'd give it a try. Why not? Right? So yeah, here I would use it. Anywhere else, I think it's adding unnecessary movement that's just going to pull your eye away from what you want the audience to see. So, back to work. The problem that we have here, and I need to find Ninja 2. I don't actually. Let's go back here. I did not label these columns, which is kind of stupid. Yeah. So this is going to be table, vase, sky, floor. It's just one of those things, you know. You get moving fast, and you just forget to label things. Into shadow, and 1, and I guess this would be Akari, and it looks to me like this is actually a sub X sheet. It is. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's like... Oh, I see what I did. Okay, yeah, this whole sequence has been dealt with. See, this is an ugly thing. It's an ugly thing. Originally, this whole sequence was done in Blender and exported as an image sequence, which I can definitely tell you has created so many problems downstream. Because now, instead of dealing with just the images that where things change in the animation, now you've got an image sequence that might have, you know, 85 frames or 200 frames, and you're always dealing with that sequence. I do not recommend that at all. What I would recommend would be okay is to use the Blender Grease Pencil for creating an animatic, or a state, you know, from a storyboard to maybe an animatic, or, you know, sort of an animated storyboard. So mapping out your plan for your animation and spitting that out as an image sequence, no problem. But as far as final animation, and especially with 3D camera moves and stuff, oh my gosh, it's great until you need to change one thing. And guess what? You always have to change one thing. You never don't. So it's like, okay. So this is a bit silly, because what's going on in here is, I believe that means that we're seeing frame 133. Yeah, she stabilizes. Nope, I think it might be here. Okay, I'm going to have to look at this to make sure I don't screw something up. Yeah, because this is not resequenced. Okay, folks, I might be causing trouble here, but I'm going to try it just for the living fun of it, because I'm a sadist, or I should say a masochist. I'm punishing myself. Okay, so we delete this, and we don't want, we really don't want this position change. And if I drag this, does it change it? Yes, it does. So I cannot do that. So why is this weird? This is weird because here in the original X sheet, she moves out of the way. Okay, and this again was an animated sequence. But in the main X sheet, she doesn't move, because I don't think I ever hit resequence. If I hit resequence now, all of a sudden Akari is going to go out of the view, which is crazy and stupid. So I'm just going to leave that one alone, baby. All right, so so the problem we have now is two things. Number one, my ninjas don't have body shadows, and that's definitely problematic for this shot. And number two, there is a keyframe missing on Ninja 2 where he is supposed to struggle and his elbow hits that table. Alright, so I'm going to save all. First thing let's do is let's get the shadows, because we know that's going to be pretty straightforward. And, okay, this is Ninja 2's head. Okay, this is another problem. I'm going back to these old scenes, and there's so much stuff that I'm going, oh, geez, what was I thinking? N2 body. Why the heck did I put his body in? You know, I mean, I can draw better now than I could when I started this thing. I mean, there's been a lot of progress. Hey, Enio-san, your signal's breaking up a little and we missed what you were saying. You know what? And I don't know what I was talking about. But, okay, so let's go to... Okay, so we can see why this is going to be a major pain. Because not only do we need to get this last keyframe in there, but also I'm going to have to manually animate the guy's head. So let's see if the drawing even exists. We'll go back here, and it looks like here we've got 3 keyframes. So what the heck was I thinking? Here's what I think I was thinking. I think what I was thinking was this. I'm going to hit the D key and I'm going to duplicate this. Alright? And now I'm going to take the S key, select everything. Okay, and now I'm going to actually reverse this on the horizontal. Hello? Did that work? That did work. Okay. And let's hit the enter key to sort of lock that in. Okay, so now you can see that he's moving to the left a little bit, which is not really acceptable. So actually here, let's make sure we select this properly. Okay, I'm just going to go like that and trust that I'm probably going to get this pretty close. And I think it is. I can use the animate tool if I need to. So go back here. Now that means we've got the fourth keyframe in there. So now if I hit the W key, there's number 4. So you can see that. Okay. And what we want to do is put that like that and delete these. Okay, so now Ninja number 2 goes boom. Okay, but his body's in the wrong spot. Okay. Let me check one thing. Is his head parented to his body or not? If I was doing this today, there's no doubt that... Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go like this. And I'm going to go like that. I'm going to use a transition. Okay, so let's get out of the effects and go to the very, very messed up stage schematic. And it's messed up because, remember, this was originally a bunch of sub-X sheets. So looks like magically enough, there's what I was looking for. And the question is Ninja 2's head parented to his body? And it is not. So here's Ninja 2's body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Ninja 2's head and I'm going to go like this. Now it's going to have to be offset. If I go back here, okay, strike that. I guess it's kind of in the right position. Okay, that's alright. So now what we can do is we can hit the animate tool, and I know it's really stupid for me to have to keep jumping back and forth between these, but I'm going to do a positional keyframe. And now you can see if I move his body, his head goes with it. There's one thing I want to do though. Actually, I'm gonna hit the Z key so there's no keyframing in there. Why? Because I want to go into my preferences and I want to make sure this is going to be animated either on 2s or essentially be constant interpolation. Now I have it set at 222. I'm gonna leave it that. I'm gonna leave it at a high number, and what that means is that when I set the position of his body here, so I'm gonna hit the A key and just wiggle that a little bit so you can see it just set a keyframe. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move it a little bit here, because remember this guy's sort of struggling to get into the room. And then here we need to really move it. Okay, now you can see a problem, but that's a silly problem. That's easy to fix. We just need to drag the Akari level this way so it's in front. Okay, so now what that means is there's no keyframe interpolation between these drawings unless they are more than 222 frames apart. So if there were 400 frames between, it would interpolate 2 positions. But as it is, it's treating it like constant interpolation. If you don't know what constant interpolation is, you know, read the manual, because it basically means that OpenToonz doesn't gradually go from position 1 to position 2. It just jumps like that. Okay. So now I feel like the motion is a little too strong. Okay, I don't like the way that went up. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that's okay. And then kind of like that. And I may make a slight modification to his body as well. Okay, so now the question becomes, do we need to do anything with the guy's head? And I'm going to say, we'll move it a little bit. Let me see what the interpolation there is. Yeah. Okay, see that? See how his head's wiggling? Okay, the reason his head's wiggling is because if you set your keyframe interpolation, your animation, if you set that to a high number, okay, but then, let me say that in reverse. Yeah, Oxer gave the right answer. That's exactly right. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm taking this complicated thing and I'm breaking it up into individual scenes so I can fine tune them, then render them out, and then when they're rendered, I bring them into Blender. So I'll tell you what I'll do is I'm going to take, what would this be? I'm going to take 1 minute, less than 1 minute, and I'm going to go ahead and play what we have so far that's edited in Blender so you can kind of see where we're going here. So I just added a black graphic to fade up from. And of course we're going to have to add the sound effects, but see, I changed this shot so that we have the trees coming out and we got the slow push in with the camera going on, and everything's a dissolve. You know, you'd have some music behind that, yada yada yada, and now we're getting into the action of what actually takes place. And so here we go. And all of these scenes, I swear, every single one of them, I've gone in and either improved things, or I can see a problem with that shot right there, by the way. His shadow is not transparent enough. But the cool thing is I can go into OpenToonz, make that fix. I mean, you're talking about literally less than a minute to re-render it, and it updates in Blender and everything's good to go. So with that shot right there, I added the birds flying by in the background just to give it a little bit of something, a little bit of life going on. I think that his silhouette is too light. It should probably be darker. So, little eyes pop open kind of thing. Another thing I would say is I don't really like Akari's hair. By the time, in the last month, the stuff that I've done, you know, her hair is, it's just looked a lot better. So I think I'm gonna wind up going back and changing that shot too. Which means I'm probably gonna have to change this one, come to think of it. But okay, so now we've got Ninja 2 moving properly, and then the next shot is where his elbow hits the table, and then the vase spins up. But what I was saying earlier about the keyframes is the reason his head moves like that. See that? The reason for that is because if you set your keyframe interpolation to just 1 frame, then if the change from 1 frame to the next is, if it happens over more than 1 frame, then it's going to interpolate all the positions in between. Okay? So by setting the number really high, I'm telling OpenToonz, hey, don't you interpolate any intermediate positions unless the distance between the 2 keyframes is more than 222 frames. Here's the problem. If the first keyframe you set, which is this one, had that interpolation number set at 1 or 2, you know, it's set low, you can't change that except through the function editor. I could go into the function editor and change it. But the easiest way to fix it, as you can see, the problem is that between these two keyframes his head wiggles. Okay, the easiest way to fix it is to go Control C and then take this keyframe position and just paste it here immediately in front of the next one. Okay, and that makes it so that now the head is locked to the same position throughout that little sequence. Now there is another way to do it, and that would be double click the keyframe. Okay, but you do have the additional problem of now you sort of have to find it. Okay. So what we're looking for is Ninja 2's head. And so we'll go Ninja 2 head. And let's see what we have here as far as keys. Where the heck is it? Whoops. I keep clicking away. Okay, there's Ninja 2's head, so we got to go way up north here. And here's where the problem is. You can see we've got a keyframe between 22 and 30. So now we go to between 22 and 30 right here. If I select these, I can go ahead and change the interpolation to constant. Now, this is an obnoxious way to do it because you can't select multiple columns and do this. So you wind up with you have to do it a lot. So it's smart to get your keyframe interpolation figured out before you start setting animation keyframes. What is generally safest, probably for anime, would be to set this number to 2. Because what that means is that if I go ahead and animate something to move over time, it's going to put keyframes every 2 frames. Which, you know, it's animated on 2s, which if something moves a lot in an anime, it's generally going to be on 2s. Sometimes it's on 3s, sometimes it's even on 4s, which would mean 8 or even 6 frames a second. Generally 2s is going to look pretty good and not be so smooth that it looks kind of cheeseball for an anime. Okay, so it looks like we got what we needed. Now what we got to do is deal with shadows. So what I'm going to do is just go to this column, boom, and I'm going to hit the B key. Boom. Okay, that didn't work. It actually did the animate tool. B key, I said. Okay, there it is. All right, and then I'm going to go here and I'll grab this brush. This is what I usually use for shadows. Okay, now let's go ahead and stretch this down to the length of the scene. And actually, I'm going to use this one. Yeah, that's cool. I hate having to keep jumping back and forth, but let's make this a little smaller. Okay, so now the deal here is that the light is behind these guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and color this in pretty well. It does not matter if I go outside the lines. Okay, so now a couple things I can do to modify this so it's going to look more correct, which is I can turn the alpha level down. So there are the alpha levels, probably about where it wants to be for these guys' shadows. Alright, so let me go ahead and get this guy's shadow in there too. Okay, and then in the schematic, I am going to add an effect, and the effect is going to be, and I'm going to go up to this other window and switch windows here so it's not so clunky. Okay, so in the effect schematic, what we want to do is we want to take this level that I just created, which I invariably didn't name. Okay, yeah, so let's call this bod shadows. Alright, and so now we go back here and we're looking for the word bod, B-O-W. Yeah, I think that'd be it. Okay, and what we're going to do, actually, I just realized a problem. Okay, yeah, this is clunky. Okay, the problem is that Ninja 1 and Ninja 2 are on different levels. So I'm going to have to combine them. Okay, alright, that's fine. Oh, if I was doing this today, it would be so much different. Okay, so what I'm going to do is each of their bodies have some effects on it. So what I actually need to do, this is so obnoxious, but here we go. Layer blending, let's just do an over. Over, over, over. Okay? Now if we come back here, I do believe we will see that all the effects are working and they seem to be overlapping. But the good thing is that Ninja 2, Ninja 1, and Ninja 2's head are now all connected in the schematic. Why is that important? Because what I want to do is I want to take the shadow and I want to multiply it by their bodies. Okay, so we're going to do layer blending INO, and it's going to be multiply. Boop. Okay, and now the background on the multiply is going to be all of their bodies. So now what we've done is we've effectively put the shadow over top of the bodies, which it already was in the X sheet, but here's the key. Because this little box right here called clipping mask, now when it renders, anywhere that the shadow went outside the lines, it gets clipped off. It gets cut, I can only draw a shadow inside their body area, which is great. Makes it easy. Okay, so now the body shadows, what I need to do is find the next movement. Okay, there's the next movement. We got a keyframe there. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to hit the D key. And the reason I'm hitting the D key is that almost the entire keyframe is going to be a copy of what I had before. The only thing I'm changing is what changed in their bodies, which is just slightly the position of Ninja 2's head. Okay. I'm looking for the next one. D key. And we'll just put a little bit more here. Maybe a little less here. Boom. And fortunately, Ninja 1 really doesn't move in this shot. Okay, D key to duplicate. Erase, erase, erase. And let's put the shadow in there. Now I'm not killing myself with the spikies in the shadow. I reserve the right to change my mind about that later. But at this point, I'm not really going to concern myself with the spikies on his shadow. Okay, cool. Alright, so now let's see what it looks like in preview mode. Not bad. Not bad. Let's do it. Alright, did I change that output setting? I did. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I want to see if the quick render is going to do an appropriate default. So I'm going to set the frame start and finish. I'm just going to make those empty. Actually, I don't know if I can do that. This is 1 to 1, so I'll bet you it's only going to do frame 1 now. Yep, that didn't work. Okay. So it's really kind of interesting because what I've found is if you take any shot and just go to the beginning and set a preview range, I think it seems to always render to that preview range, but once you change the output settings, then it follows that. So, okay. No big tragedy. So we want 1 through 44, and so we go to our output settings. We want frames 1 through 44. Boom, boom. I'm not going to hit render because what I want to do is do a quick render. That makes it an MP4 using FFmpeg, and it puts it in the correct folder. Yes, JParks, that is a backlit effect on the Ninjas. That is OpenTune's backlit effect. Not too bad. I like it. I think it's a good useful effect. Alright, so that takes less than a minute to render. Fortunately, OpenTune's rendering is actually pretty quick. And then up here, we're going to go ahead and just go doo-doo. And okay. Hang on a second. Stop everything. I'm going to kill that. I might have a problem here. N2 hits the table. Oh. Okay. Strike that. It looks like I have 2 that were re-rendered. So I wonder why. Let me look at this one. Come on. Oh yeah, that was me. That was me testing things. So this and this, pretty sure need to be deleted. And then let's go ahead and do a batch conversion here. That took only a half a second. And now I should be able to drag and drop this sucker into Blender like so. And of course Blender's actually going to put it where the shoot. Escape. Yeah, there we go. Alright, let's just zoom in here a little bit. You can hit the P key here in Blender to define a preview range like that, so that now if I hit the Alt A, it will actually just limit it to this range of frames. It's kind of useful. Okay, that's obviously not positioned quite right. Okay, so now we're in Blender and we realize that, of course, this shot needs some color correction. It doesn't really match well going from here to here. It's not dark enough. Now I could have added the vignette, and frankly I should have, but because I'm here, I'll show you how to do the color correction. What I've been doing is typically adding a curves modifier. Now I want everything to be a little darker. Hello. Clicky clicky. So let's just go to maybe here. And then maybe go like that. And then maybe push the blue just a little bit. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that's not bad. I can see that it appears we're losing... we lost the shadow on his arm there at the end. Okay, so no big deal. It's easy to fix. Come back here. And there's the problem. Okay, and so I'll have to do a re-render of that. But as long as I'm here, let's go ahead and fix the color situation the smart way. Just because we want the ability to add a vignette. And sort of, I want to put Akari in shadow for one thing. So I'm going to just add a level, which I typically just add it, I call it tint, because it's a way of tinting the shot. I take an airbrush, which we want to have be on the big-ish side. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to do something like this. Okay, unfortunately I moved a little too fast. That's better. Okay. Yeah, because really she's not supposed to be like super bright in the background or the foreground the way she is. Okay, so now also, just because we can, let's add a little bit of vignetting here to sort of hem these guys in. And then I do want a little bit all over the whole thing, even though it's going to be darker in these corners. You'll see how we tweak that here in a moment. Okay, so now that that's like that, what we're going to do is bring it up a little bit and push it over to the blue. So this is the great thing about using a Toonz raster level for color correction. Alright, and now we can turn the alpha down and we can just dial it in. Okay, I think slightly more blue. And that's pretty close to what I'm getting in Blender. So, File, Save All. Let's hit the Alt-R again. And while that's rendering... Hey, what just happened? Yeah, while that's rendering, I'm going to jump back to Blender and I'm going to delete that color correction node because color correction, what would you call it? I guess a modifier. Because we're not going to need that. So... that'll take only a second to render, and then we'll go ahead and reconvert it to MJPEG, which takes literally 1/4 of 1 second. Not a big deal. And let's go back over here. I'm going to check my messages. Ever rig grease pencil outlines in Blender? Well, Jay, I've done... you know, I've done most of what you can do with the grease pencil. Um, and I have used the grease pencil for animatics and storyboards, and actually this shot we're looking at right now was originally done in Blender. Other than for initial storyboards and or animatics, where you're just mapping out pencils for keyframes. In other words, you're not trying to do ink, you're not trying to do color, you're just doing the pencil test. For that, no problem using Blender. Anything else, Blender is at this point sufficiently inferior to OpenToonz to not be a compelling production option for me. That's my opinion. Other people may differ, and of course it's going to continue to change on an ongoing basis because the Blender 2.8 grease pencil is going to be improved. But I seriously doubt it's going to be part of the life cycle of this project. It could happen, but... And by the way, yeah, see how it updated? And see it's kind of blinking? What's going on here is that I didn't even have to reload the project. Blender gets that the video file that it's referencing got updated. But let me see what I need to do here. Maybe I have to play the whole thing through in order for it to... Now, what I'm wondering is, the second time through, is it going to play it back properly? It's one of those iffy things. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to say it's a little hit and miss. So what you really want to do is go just reload the project, and then all those changes propagate. Okay, so now there is one problem here, actually. It's kind of interesting, is that this is... maybe I deleted the... you know, I think I might have deleted the color corrector on the wrong... on the wrong clip, which is fine. It's not a big deal, but... Now this is too blue, so I'm going to get rid of the blue tint there. And then also I would say it's slightly too dark. Oh, it's too dark because of this. Okay. So let's boop that back up. And now let's see how it flows from here to here. The only thing I would object to probably is it does seem a little bit saturated to me. Now, I could re-render it out of OpenToonz and take a little bit of that blue back. And frankly, I'm going to do that this way. I'm going to just take the saturation, pull it back a little bit, but I'm not going to re-render it. That's kind of a waste of time. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the Blender modifiers, and I'm just going to add a, let's say, would it be a hue correct? Probably color balance. Let's see if color balance is what I'm looking for. No. Nope, that looks like a pretty capable color corrector, but it's not really what I want. I guess I need the hue corrector. Okay, the hue corrector by default is operating on saturation, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take the blue areas and reduce their saturation. So if I take, by the way, I'm going to get rid of a couple of these nodes, if you will, so that my edit area is fairly broad. So what I'm doing is I'm saying anything that's blue, desaturate. Look what happens. Whoa! And it didn't touch the yellow. That's cool. That's what the hue correct does for you. Okay? But that was, of course, too extreme. So now I'm just going to pull that back a little bit. And if you want to just hit the little eyeball here, you can tweak it in and out, and you can see that that's actually pretty darn close to what I did in OpenToonz. So the question then becomes, does it still play back in real time, or is the additional modifiers going to start to bog down performance? Let's find out. Let's find out. 24 frames. We're around. It's around 10. So I would say once you add more than a basic curves modifier, you do tend to take a performance hit. So in that respect, Blender is way, way, way inferior to Vegas. What if we used linear modifiers? Does that make a difference? I don't know. Let's turn this off, and let's turn this off, and let's see if you turn the modifiers off, does the performance go up? Yeah, seems to. Yeah, seems to. So just turning them off does help. But in this case, I kind of need them. So, yeah, that knocks me from about 24 frames a second down to about 16. But, you know, I don't care at this point. So, I suppose the takeaway would be, if you wanted to have the best performance, you would go ahead and do this. Oh, I just did it. So I guess we'll go ahead and bring that into Blender and get rid of that Hue Correct plugin. Yeah, am I impressed with Eevee? Yeah, Eevee's amazing, definitely. I love DaVinci Resolve for color correction. Yeah, I don't. To be fair, there's nothing you could do in the color correction space that you couldn't do with DaVinci Resolve. But the same is true of, frankly, Blender. The same is definitely true of Sony Vegas. The color correction tools are very, very strong. And so DaVinci Resolve has not, it's a good program, but it hasn't been compelling for me to make the switch. I haven't played around with the color correction in Natron, which is, of course, an open source compositor. So not sure about that. But anyway, let's go back here now. We got to make our conversion. So boom, boom. We're going to go back here and just hit mjpeg.bat, which brings up this. And I say, yeah, overwrite that sucker. It's gone. Okay, so now I come back to Blender like that. And all right, so now we're going to reload that scene. And probably, I already got rid of the Hue Correct, so I'm going to turn this off and just see if it's even needed at this point. Probably not. I'm going to leave it in there, but leave it turned off. Yeah. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to get rid of it. It's not needed. So it's going to be a little more performant if you get your color right in OpenTunes, and that's what you render. But it doesn't take much time to bounce back and forth, so it's not really a big deal one way or the other. Okay. All right, so now, yes, Natron is like, what else is it like? Blender and OpenTunes and almost any like really deep, capable program for doing media production. It's an ugly interface, and you have to get used to it. That's for sure. I have it on this machine. I've played around with it. Like I said, it looks like it's real capable. Probably the big selling point with Natron is that, at least on paper, I haven't really tested this, but at least on paper, Natron caches a lot of stuff in memory. Like, it's processing your edits and effects and stuff in the background all the time, so that whenever you do a playback, you get nice real-time performance. Does it actually work? I don't know. I haven't tried it. DaVinci is fused with Fusion 9 now, and it's also free. Yeah, well, actually, DaVinci and Fusion have been, ever since Blackmagic acquired them, obviously they have been free for a long time. And I do have Fusion on this machine as well, but just rarely have a need to use it. You know, frankly, the compositing and color correction tools and everything in either OpenTunes or Blender are both more than adequate for 99% of the things you have to do. In the past, I did motion tracking in Blender, but haven't had occasion to do that anytime recently. So anyway, N2 hits the table. So now what I think we need to do is go back to this again. And again, we're just breaking this sucker up into individual scenes so we can make it all look sweet and pretty. Alright, so there's the shot we just did. So now we're here. Okay, cool. So that means these columns need to be deleted. I don't even know what this column is. I don't care. I'm deleting it. The sub-X sheet, I'm going to drag to the top. I may regret this. Not sure if this is a great idea or not. Going to go down into the sub-X sheet, and you can see, yeah, we do have a few keyframes, which is kind of unfortunate. You know, I think my best strategy here is just to leave this as a sub-X sheet. Because this is going to, yes, this is going to play properly. So I'm going to File, Save Scene As, and this is going to be 17. The vase starts to go. Okay, so what am I saying? What I'm saying is any tweaks I need to make, I'll make in here, and then when I render it, hopefully it'll render frames 1 through 31. Let me look at my output settings. Yeah, and it's set to do just that, so that's perfect. Okay, so the problem we have on this shot is actually the floor. This floor was painted kind of early in the process, and it really just does not look like all the other floors in the show, and plus the coloring is a little whacked out. So time is it? 3 o'clock? How long have I been streaming? Hour and a half. Hour and a half. Okay, I'm gonna go like this. Yeah, this is completely lame. So I'm gonna go to my typical oil paint brush, which is what I've been using basically for the floors, and let's just deal with this in no uncertain terms. I don't mind having a little bit of vignetting there at the edge, because we do have the sun coming in, and plus we have the ninjas over top of the floor anyway, so they should be covering up the stuff that's, you know, potentially going to be problematic here. So I don't mind having a little bit of a hint of the light right there, but other than that, it pretty much needs to go to darkness, right? So it's painting time. So the basic overall, I don't know what I was thinking when I made this like purplish. I don't know. I was young and inexperienced. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Okay. So I'm just gonna kind of get this with the faintest hint of what the direction of the wood planks would be, and you'll see this come together here in a minute. I'm gonna make this really dark now so that I can, you know, this really needs to be lost in shadow. But again, I actually think leaving a little bit here at the edge looks kind of cool. So let's get this in here, hitting the R key to sample that color. Okay, that looks pretty good. So then with these wood floors, what I've been finding myself doing is, once I get them blocked in, I'll take a little bit lighter color and just get a couple little more saturated, and maybe a couple little bit lighter ones going on here like that. That I feel like was a bit much. So I think I'm going to do what I typically do around this stage, which is make my brush a little thinner. I just want to just ease it in there. You'll see the floor. The floor will start to emerge. Want a little more saturation there. You know, the whole point of background paintings is they're not calling a lot of attention to themselves. You know, they're background painting. Okay, so that's not too bad. We're going to go a little darker here. Get this. I'm just going to actually give that a sharp edge. See if there's anything going on. Yeah, I'm with the Oxstar. I mean, I can't say that I have no problem with Adobe. I mean, it's a good company. I actually went to high school with Mark Hamburg, who pretty much is the guy. He didn't originally write Photoshop, but he's pretty much the guy that shepherded it to its success back in the 90s. And you know, they're real capable apps. I think the way they've changed their business model to be on the cloud is probably a good thing. It's not like the cost of a subscription's that great. I have Photoshop 5 on this machine. Rarely use it. I mean, I don't know, man. Just the open source suite of tools, which for me at this point is OpenTunes, Krita, GIMP, Blender, FFmpeg, you know, some command line stuff. You know, everything I need to do. I mean, look what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing this. So you don't need Adobe Animate to do animation. Now, there's nothing wrong with it. I have Flash 5, which is obviously a pretty old version, but I'm just not a big fan of vectors for at least not this kind of character animation. If I was doing Family Guy, I'd probably be using vectors. And I'd be reusing assets probably a lot more than I do. But for this, excuse me, it's really been more of a, you know, the traditional pixel-based art has really been more appropriate to, you know, an anime kind of property, I think. And I tried it both ways. You know, I tried it both ways. My parrot just said, okay. I think he's listening to me, and apparently whatever I said was okay with him. Okay, so now what we're going to do... See, what I like to do is add just a little splash of color here and there to... It just... Your eye, it just makes a suggestion to your eye. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go real dark. I'm going to go boom, like that. Okay? Put a little circle here. Okay? Like so. That's... is that too much? It's probably too much. Let me make it not quite so dark. Okay, and then this one, probably a little blending effect wouldn't be a bad thing. Okay, so now we go quite a bit lighter. Just get a little kiss. Little kiss. Little kiss here and there. And that seems to do a really nice job of suggesting to the eye that you got wood grain going on. And yeah, as you can see, doesn't look too bad, but there's still some more I have to do. What we want to do here is grab our airbrush, and I'm going to go ahead and do it here specifically so that I can just see it happening over top of my characters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample this color, okay, and then I want to make it just a little darker. So I'm going to turn the value down a little bit, and then what I need to do, oops, darn it, that's not what I meant to do. Click, a little less value, back to my brush, and now what I want to do is just airbrush this, so this whole thing is just a little darker. Okay. And I feel like maybe I want my brush even bigger. Okay. So in the past, the way I've done this, typically make the wall itself just a little darker. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So then here, we really want to do the same thing because that wall is blocking the light that's coming in the room. Okay, so that's not too bad. And if we go black, we make it even more extreme. But I think that's pretty much okay. Alright, so now I'm going to go back here, and looks like Darren's back. Hey, Darren. Hey, Darren. Hey, do you use a Wacom tablet? I'm gonna put my lunch when I'm start streaming. Hopefully, your stream is on. Yeah. XP Pen 15 Artist. It's real good. It costs about $350, I think. Yeah, I've been really happy with it. One thing about this one is the stylus is passive. No battery required. Never had any driver issues. Yeah, I don't think you need tilt, but I will say, Amar, did I get that right? Amar? My tests have shown that this stylus does respond to tilt. I think it was in my paint. I haven't fiddled with it, and I agree with you that it's hardly ever necessary. but I did some sketching where I had it really tilted down, and the quality of the stroke was different. So I cannot say that the XP Pen 15 Artist does not respond to tilt. I think maybe it does. But, and my son has had two different standard tablets, you know, not tablet screens, but standard tablets from XP Pen. Both have worked great. I have nothing but good to say about that company. So, anyway, okay, so we've got this. Boom. Okay, so let's add the tint. We got to add the tint. So, B key, boom. I'll just stretch this on down, and again, we're going to do the vignette thing. So let's go to raster. We want the airbrush, and I'm just going to say that actually, I didn't mean to put that marker in there, by the way. What I'm going to do is, let me think about this. I think what I want to do is I want to go ahead and let these guys get lost a little bit in shadow here. But I don't want to get too much into this zone. Okay? In fact, I almost think I want to go like this so that there's a seemingly an edge that I mean, it'd probably be smarter to put, you know what, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put some moonbeams on here in another level because it's just no trouble to do so. So let's just fix this. Go color. We'll bring this up a little bit, and then we're gonna go to the blue. Okay, and then let's just dial in the alpha. Okay, it feels a little extreme to me. Yeah, it feels definitely a little extreme. You just want that little bit of bluish thing going on. Okay. So now, having done that, I can go ahead and tint this a little bit. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in another level. I'm going to go boom. I'm going to do the same thing again. This is going to be another airbrush. I don't usually do two of these. But what I want to do is I want to have, and by the way, obviously the color should be white. This is what I want. Okay, this shows you how cheap and fast and easy it is to add really cool post-production effects with just plain old levels in OpenTunes. So now I can take this and I can just dial it in. Dial it in. And if that's about there, which it probably should be about there, then this one could be a little richer, actually. They're kind of working against each other a little bit. Okay, so that's not too bad. The thing I'm sort of fighting myself on here is it feels to me, honestly, I think the grass is too. Yeah. The problem is this grass is too light. And it's too. Let me look at the. Let's try this. Let's just try this. That's it. That's all I needed. Okay. Still seems kind of light, but let's see how it renders. It's not bad, not bad. Looks like these guys also have the rim light effect on them from way back when I did this. Now, one thing that I'm curious about is it looks like the floor might have, it might need some pre-multiplying. So let's go to level settings, and it looks like pre-multiply is turned on. So this might be a deal breaker, that those lines. And I don't really want to try to fix those right here live on YouTube. That's going to be a little bit of a, that's going to be probably bringing the image into excuse me, Krita or GIMP and doing a real surgical kind of fix. So I think what I'll do is let's go ahead and get this scene rendered, and then I think I'm going to wrap up for today. Thanks, Darren. I appreciate that. Don't think you even want to. Do you ever use the RGB sliders on the palette? Yeah. I mean, when I need to. It's just that normally, with color, I'll ballpark it by just clicking on the square, and then I'll typically fine tune it here, and then when I'm messing with the slider, it's usually alpha, or it might be value, and once in a while it's saturation. Not very often RGB, just because if you're trying to get to a ballpark RGB color, I find it's just a lot quicker to just click here on the colors, the color cube, I guess you'd call it. Okay, so having said that, save our work, Alt R. Okay, you stop. It's rendering through frame 283. That's interesting. Okay, let's go back to the X sheet and look at this. Yes. We need to come up out of here. Now let's see what it does. Let's hit Alt R here. Yes, that works. Okay, so that's going to render my 31 frames. And then I can bring those into Blender. And obviously I'm going to need a preview range that's a little bit farther out here. And what I'll do is go ahead and set my edit point where it needs to be. So when I drag it in, it's going to be correct. And looks like OpenToonz is done rendering. I am converting the MJPEG behind the scenes, and now I can drag the video file right to here, and there it is. Okay, definitely on the dark side. See, this is what I was talking about. This is what always happens. You always find out that it isn't quite right, and you have to make color corrections after the fact. Now, I think what's going on here, actually, I suspect, is if I go to the schematic, let's do the transition here. Yeah, I think what's going on is I think we have a post-production color correction here. Now, just for completeness, I'm going to clean up this X sheet. I really wish OpenToonz did a better job of cleaning up after itself. So now I have to go down. Well, actually, let's do it this way. Let's go here, and there it is. There's the problem right there. That needs to be gotten rid of. Okay, and then can we go down here, just double checking that things are sort of clean. Okay, this little button right here organizes the schematic, in case you wondered. And it looks like on the shadows, there's a level adjustment there on the shadow, so I don't know if that's satisfactory or not, but let's take a look at this. That's okay, so let's go up and out and re-render it. And that'll take all of, probably 30 seconds, so pretty quick. And while that render is finishing up, I'm going to go up here. And oh, you're not supposed to see that. That's the YouTube chat window and everything. Where is my conversion? Here's my conversion. Yes, I want to overwrite it. And now if I simply reload this project, I believe. Oh, I didn't save it. My bad. Okay. Well, I have been known to do dumber things in my time, so once again, hitting the P key, and then I'm grabbing the vase starts to go and dragging it to right here. And yeah, that color definitely looks better, although now we've actually lost some of our blue. That will be easily fixed here. Let's add a curves, and I think in this case all we need to do is adjust the blue level, so let's just do it like that. And that's probably pretty close. These are all going to be changed again, guaranteed. Once I get to the final edit, I'm just throwing these in here so that if I want to roll back and see the flow, I can do so. So, yeah. And frankly, probably something like that is going to be pretty close. Yeah, that's definitely closer. So, and all right, so let's save our work. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. It's been a good almost 2 hours today, and I've gotten quite a bit done, which is cool. And I appreciate all you guys hanging out. It's been fun. And I will catch y'all next time.